Welcome to Washington Exec's video series. I'm Amanda Ziadeh, senior reporter with Washington Exec, and today I'm joined by Josh Elliot, the head of operations for AI software platform Modzy and vice president at Booz Allen Hamilton. Thank you so much for joining me today, Josh.
Thank you.
All right, so we're here today to talk about buying AI and how to best position AI investments for long-term success. So I wanted to first start by asking, what are the most common misconceptions around buying versus building AI, and what do you recommend organizations do?
I think that's a great question and one that's coming up quite a bit these days. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that the decision is mutually exclusive. Based on my experience, I'm seeing a number of organizations that are employing a combined approach, one that takes advantage of the commercial off-the-shelf software platforms, really to accelerate an organization's machine learning training, ML ops, and model ops capabilities, but also deciding to insource the design, development, and maintenance of proprietary machine learning or AI models when they have the talent and the unique data sets and the infrastructure and the complex business need, time, as well as budget. But for those that are looking at enterprise machine learning capabilities, I'd recommend that organizations procure open architecture software that comes with robust APIs and SDKs that make it easy for data scientists and software engineers, and don't lock you into a proprietary end-to-end solution with a lot of technical debt. And then for AI models, I think it's important for organizations to first explore existing marketplaces for available open source or commercially available pre-trained models. You may find that subscribing to a pre-trained model gets you 70% of the way there compared to what your existing capability provides today. And for organizations that are deciding to subscribe to pre-trained models, I think you need to look for AI software vendors that enable you to retrain the models based on your data in new classes, while also preserving the intellectual property that you have. I think these added capabilities could really get you to your target performance levels and avert the time and energy and resources to build it.
So what are the right questions to ask when buying AI in order to position an organization's investments for long-term success? Are there any specific answers that organizations should be looking for?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of focus right now on how organizations are expending their valuable resources. And when you combine that with the pressures of quickly and responsibly demonstrating value from artificial intelligence and the maturity of the technology, I think leaders need the flexibility to be able to change direction if they're introduced to a different approach. So some questions that I would consider are you willing to invest in the right mix of tools and capabilities for your organization? Because you're going to need tools that enable both machine learning ops as well as model ops, because that's what actually gets your AI into production. And you need to look for solutions that fit within your existing infrastructure. But at the same time, you need to be suspicious of end-to-end solutions that claim to do it all. While they appear tempting, they can really hurt you in the end. So focus on finding those open architecture solutions that allow your teams to work the way that they like with the tools that they like, the languages and the frameworks that are popular today. This also allows your stack to remain flexible and extensible through the future. And then lastly, I think it's important to note that there are so many vendors out there that believe they can easily transfer their PhD's expertise or an adjacent solution to your problem set. Instead, I would consider approaches that allow vendors to demonstrate their capabilities instead of telling you. For example, organizations could buy in phases. They could issue, for instance, a sample of their data with an RFP and ask vendors to produce an initial operating capability based on your data, and then switch the model to allow for more development or a full subscription to the technology, because it really helps to weed out some of those vendors in the process.
And my last question for you is really a two-part question. What AI tools do you recommend organizations start with, and how they build from those? And then how do they tackle integrating those tools into their existing technology stack?
I think that's a great question. I think really it comes down to the types of tools that you need are really dependent on your organization's maturity. There are a lot of auto ML tools out there that help data scientists accelerate the model training process, But I think it's important to note that many of these tools are becoming commoditized, so your data scientists have a lot of options to choose from. And as I said earlier, the hardest part is going to be operationalizing these models, and it's going to be important to pick a tool that allows you to do this easily within your governance process and provides you the details about the model, such as performance metrics, the model build architecture, training data, lineage, and provenance. And then I think it's also important to find something that fits within your existing tech stack. You need to look for an open architecture product. And this is going to allow you easily swap in and swap out technologies with your existing infrastructure and workflows, as well as your front-end applications. And look for products that allow you to easily manage your model operations and your infrastructure usage. There's a lot of costs associated with running artificial intelligence, and these types of capabilities will help you handle the cost of AI models running in your production environments. And then similarly, tools that provide enterprise view of how AI models are being used or run across your organization can provide your leadership, whether it's your CIO, your CISO, or your CTO, insight into how AI is being used and performing across your enterprise. It's going to support you in terms of being able to manage and monitor your costs and also identify potentially any shadow AI projects that may exist in your organization. And in that same vein, you should also select tools that allow you to evaluate and monitor the trustworthiness of your artificial intelligence capabilities. And consider how explainability can be built into models, performance metrics, and other ways that end users and consumers are processing that model information, understand how the model is being used, and how the outputs are being determined.
Right. Well, thank you so much for sharing all these insights with us. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for the time today.
Of course.